My name is Benjamin Willis. You know, Bermuda Triangle, Atlantis, Bigfoot are quite interesting, but there's one mystery that we all wonder about. Let's get the creepy one out of the way first. All throughout history, people have witnessed ghosts, but now in our modern video age, we can see them too.
What was that?
I know that skeptics will argue that ghost sightings can be numerous other explainable anomalies, but that argument falls apart when the witness knows the ghost.
All new at 5, spooky security camera footage.
Yeah, a Metro Atlanta mom says it actually shows her son's ghost. CBS 46's Yasmina Alston spoke with some paranormal investigators to see if it's real or if it's a hoax.
Here in Canton, Georgia, a group of paranormal investigators look into the supernatural. So it was only right that we asked them about what a mom says she saw in her security footage.
It's definitely unexplainable.
A Metro mom says her home security footage captured her son's ghost.
Definitely tell that in the photo there is a human figure.
On Facebook, Jennifer Hodge posted that she was watching TV with her daughter when an alert on her phone said, "Your entryway camera saw someone." Here's what it showed.
No one's around at the time and something gets captured that we can't explain.
Hodge posted that the figure looks just like her son Robbie, who died in 2016. Hodge told media outlets her son died of an accidental drug overdose. Now, we showed the pictures to paranormal investigators Heather Thompson and Stephanie Forte with Paranormal Georgia Investigations. They agree with Hodge.
Okay, now I'm understanding what she's talking about, but it was definitely a human figure. I mean, there wasn't anything questionable as to, okay, maybe that's a curtain that's billowing, or maybe that's, an appliance. That's definitely a human figure.
The two are part of a group that investigate homes and businesses of those who think they're dealing with the paranormal. They tell me security footage can be helpful, but to confirm, an actual home visit would be necessary. Hodge posted she is happy to be able to know her son is always with them.
I'm glad that she's happy. I'm very glad that she's comforted and that this brings her joy, because I wish more people would have that type of reaction to paranormal activity.
In Canton, Yasmina Alston, CBS 46 News.
I got a call from my wife saying, "Better get over here quick because I don't think she's going to make it." The pain that you feel is just so intense. I just couldn't take it. I didn't care about anybody. I really just tried to kill myself. I just wanted to die. So this went on for 2 years after she passed away, and I was in and out of 8 or 9 rehabs. Just couldn't get a grip on what had just happened in my life, and I felt she was waiting for me, and that's the only place that I wanted to go, is I just wanted to be with her. One night, I was laying in bed with her blanket and still going through, my demons of just wanting to die. I was sound asleep. And there was a little tug on a blanket. I woke up, I opened my eyes. It was dead silent, and the door was open. I was scared. I didn't know what was going on. And it was her. And it was her. She was standing by my side and staring right at me. And I just couldn't believe it. I didn't really know what to think. And she looked at me and she said, "Hi, Daddy." I knew it wasn't a dream. It was as real as could be. She was wearing a little white kind of sundress and Little Mermaid tennis shoes. And she led me out of bed. To where she had her color books set up. And I sat down. We colored and we picked out colored crayons for her. And I remember she held up a picture of a whale and she painted it red. And she laughed because, you know, whales aren't red. And we played for a long time. And then she just looked at me and she said, "Daddy, I can't come and see you anymore." And it was weird because all of a sudden it was just her face. I was just staring at her. And I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, school." And I said, "Really, school?" She goes, "Yes. And when I'm done learning, I'll come back and I'll see you again." And with that, she was gone.
It's not just visual sightings either. People have been comforted by smelling Dad's aftershave or hearing Mom's voice.
So, good to see you again.
You too.
Our goal was to figure out who was here, and we had a camera in the room where you saw the woman on the bed, and we captured a voice right in this area. He says just one word.
We are at the top of the staircase.
It's a woman's voice.
And I would like to take you back.
Yeah, they weren't there. My mom's picture up there was there. Yeah. You know?
Okay. We were all so focused on Murdy. And then we had this spike as soon as you mentioned your mother. But this is your mom. There's another piece we want to show you. It's something to listen to. And we want you to be honest with us about what you hear, okay?
Are you the person that we were talking to upstairs?
I hear a woman's voice. Now? Ma? Me personally, I feel like she's saying Mom. I don't think it sounds that American to me.
Right.
I'm getting Mom.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting from it.
Some have found confirmation of the afterlife through a psychic.
I think it was about 6 weeks later, I went to see a psychic. The first thing he said to me was, "Did your mom just pass over?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, she's here. She says to tell you her hair looks good." Which immediately gave me faith in this psychic, because that was the last thing she had done, was go to get her hair done. And then he said, "She's here with another lady, an elderly lady, who has sort of strange-looking shoes." My memory of my grandmother is that she always wore these orthopedic shoes. I'm sure that that's who he was talking about. He said they're sitting in rocking chairs on the front porch of a farm. And they're having a good time. This guy was in touch with my mom. There was no question in my mind that my mom was there with my grandmother. And everything is good.
Bottom line, a lot of people have experienced ghostly encounters.
Have you ever had a supernatural encounter?
I have.
Really?
I do. I live in a 16th century manor house in England near Stonehenge.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got a ghost in a 16th century manor house, you need one.
Yes.
And so when our children were very young, Trudy and I were in bed. I woke up, and in the corner of the room, there was a woman standing with a baby, and I thought she was standing with the baby. And why is she standing there staring at me? And I reached over, and Trudy was there. And she woke up too, and she saw a woman and a child in our room. And then she disappeared. And I'd never believed in ghosts before that.
Had you been...
No. Absolutely straight.
Had you been that day, shall we say, picking mushrooms?
No. No. That was the next day, but not that.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Oh, yeah, very much. I have a cabin that's about 150 years old. Parts of it are. And it's very inhabited, yeah. And I have a rule. Do you have... I mean, I just walk through instead of... I don't want to start a war, so I just say, hey, we can all be friendly roomies. Yeah. And we can cohabitate. And that's kind of how things have calmed down. But I also have a rule that we don't talk about it inside the house. If there's been something that's happened the night before, we go out on the land and talk, because why give it more? And do you have something like... Do you have rules like that?
No,
I've just taken over the interview, apparently.
No, sorry, no, I'm saying, hang on, you have a rule that you can talk to the ghost.
Yes.
But you can't talk about the ghost if other people are here. Do you not feel that the ghost at any point is going, guys, I'm here?
Yeah.
I would hate it if every time I was in my house, people went, let's go outside to talk about James. We're going to talk about you, Jack. We're going to go outside into the garden.
You make a good point, but it's worked thus far. There was one point where I did break that rule one night. Some friends and I were in the kitchen. It was late. It was very cold outside. They started to tell stories about what they had experienced in the house. And I said, no, we were outside. They said, well, it's too cold. We're not going outside. I said, all right, fine. And one friend then said, it's funny, because I'm usually very susceptible to those kind of energies, and I don't feel anything here. And the oven light exploded over her head. I just looked at everyone and went, good night. Let's go to bed now.
Some have found faith in the afterlife through a divine or spiritual experience.
All right, best story of the night right here. A Michigan couple getting the shock of their lives when they got an alert from their security camera in the driveway.
It was kind of like really unusual. I've never ever seen anything like it.
I was like, wow. I mean, that is an angel.
The photos are exactly how they were taken. I choose to believe it. I think it's an angel.
Take a good look. Many, including their pastor, said that they believe this image, captured by a security camera, shows an angel hovering over the family's truck last week. So could it be? And in the next picture, I think we have it, it sort of looks like it has moved to a different part over the trucks.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty in the moonlight overthrew you. And she tied you to her kitchen chair. She broke your throat and she cut your hair. And from the lips she drew the hallelujah. 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 Baby, I've been here before. Seen this room and I've walked this floor. I used to live alone.
Подвергается все большей опасности. Только за последние 350 лет...
Олеська, сори.
Ой, ничего себе! Что это? Вау!
There have been some convincing reincarnation cases that are quite unexplainable.
Number 1. Past life in Hollywood. Our first story is about a boy named Ryan from Oklahoma. He began talking about his past life in Hollywood at the age of 4. A book about Hollywood triggered further memories. He saw a picture from a 1932 movie called Night After Night. He said he was friends with a man in the movie who was an actor and spokesman for cigarette commercials. Ryan also identified his past self in the photo, a man named Marty Martin. He remembered correctly a scene that he had acted in and details of Martin's life, such as his days of tap dancing on Broadway, his 3 younger sisters, and the color of his car. Ryan said that he liked being Ryan, but wanted to go back to his big house on the hill with a swimming pool. Every time Ryan saw the Hollywood Hills on television, he would exclaim that that's where he was from. Martin did indeed live in a huge Hollywood mansion with a pool and was well known for his love of socializing with the rich and powerful. Ryan also correctly identified more than 50 truths about Marty Martin's life, down to the fact that he was 61 years old when he died, and not 59 as stated on his death certificate. Number 2. The Fighter Pilot Child. This is an extremely fascinating and strange story because of its reliance on a child who clearly seems to know way more than he should. At a very young age, James Leninger started narrating his love for fighter planes. Now, this sounds normal at first, since many young boys like playing with planes. However, this was different. James could go into extreme specifics of how a fighter plane worked, in fact, into so much detail that it left his parents startled by his wealth of information. Eventually, James started having nightmares in which he would picture himself dying and being shot down by a Japanese plane with a red sun on it. Not only that, he was even able to recall the name of his plane, Corsair, and the boat from which it was launched, Natoma. Both of these names were verified, along with his own alleged name in his past life, James Huston. Number 3. Golf Legend. At the age of 2, Hunter was watching TV with his father when a clip appeared of 13-time major golf champion Bobby Jones. Hunter turned to his dad and told him that he had been Bobby Jones when he was big, and he had demanded to be called Bobby from that moment on. His father decided to test him, so he printed off several pictures of houses, one of which was Bobby's childhood home. Hunter called all the pictures a house, except Bobby's, which he called home. At the age of 3, Hunter started taking golf lessons, and he has been likened to Bobby Jones in his style of play. He also declared from a young age that his favorite golf course was Augusta, which is the national course, home of the Masters that Bobby Jones helped establish in the 1930s. Hunter, now a little older, has won 41 out of 50 junior golf tournaments and is seen as potentially the next Tiger Woods. Or is he really the reincarnation of Bobby Jones? Number 4. Screenwriter of the Past. A little boy named Lee had developed an obscene fascination with Hollywood and told his parents that he worked on movies. Quizzing him on this developing obsession, Lee's parents asked if he acted in movies, to which he replied, "No, I wrote them." His family listed off movies, asking him if he wrote any of them, and he reacted positively when Gone with the Wind was mentioned. The idea that Lee was recalling the past life of Sidney Coe Howard became to seem more real when his parents realized it explained some of his behavior, such as insisting his birthday was June 26th and not June 21st. Lee would speak about his home in Hollywood and also revealed a strong interest in tractors. This made sense, since before the release of Gone with the Wind in 1939, Howard was at home on his Massachusetts farm when he went to take his tractor out of his garage to work on his property. Tragically, a hired hand left the tractor in gear and it rolled forward, pinning him to the foundation wall of the garage and crushing him to death. Indeed, from an early age, little Lee showed an aversion to anything being near his upper body, and although interested in tractors, he was terrified by them too. Number 5. Anne Frank and Barb O'Carlin. Perhaps one of the saddest stories we all remember from our childhood is Anne Frank's story. An innocent young girl writing in her diary while hiding from the Nazis in a concealed room behind a bookcase for 2 years before she was captured and transferred to a concentration camp where she died shortly after. 9 years later, a little girl named Barbo came into this world. As soon as she could speak, she started claiming that her parents were not her real parents and that she wasn't in her real home. During that period, she had frequent nightmares in which men were breaking through the attic door. While visiting Amsterdam with her parents, Barbo was able to find Anne Frank's house without any directions or help from anyone. To the amazement of her parents, Barbo knew the inside of the house and took her parents directly to Anne's hiding place. Number 6. The Village Boy. This is the story of Pramod Sharma, born in India in 1944. Since his childhood, he spoke of his wife and her cooking in Moradabad, a village about 145 kilometers away from his present home. Between the ages of 3 and 4, Pramod described a business venture called Mohan Brothers, where he had worked with family members selling cookies and water. He even built miniature shops and served his family mud cookies and water. He advised his parents against eating curd and would not touch it himself. He said that he had become very ill eating it in his old life. Pramod also hated being submerged in a bath and told his parents that he had died in a bathtub. Eventually, Pramod was taken to Moradabad and all the details of his story were corroborated. It turned out that there was a family that had run a soda and cookie shop called Mohan Brothers. They even learned of the fate of the man who owned the shop. He died in 1943 shortly after taking a bath and gorging on curd, which gave him gastrointestinal illness. Number 7. The Barra Boy. In our final story, we look at a boy named Cameron, who was born in Glasgow, Scotland, but claimed he actually belonged to the island of Barra, off the coast of Scotland. Around the age of 2, he started mentioning incidents and details of his past life, including details about his black and white dog, his parents, their names, and how they had died. He talked about a white house and a beach on which planes landed. He even drew a picture of his old house by the beach. Eventually, his family took him to the island, and they found the white house near the beach, exactly as he drew it. Remarkably, Cameron knew the house inside out, even showing them a secret entrance. The family found an old photograph of the black and white dog, along with a car that Cameron had remembered. Since his visit to Barra, Cameron talks less about his old life, but he has told pals not to worry about dying because you just come back.
A wealth of evidence has come from near-death experiences.
Mellon Thomas Benedict. In 1982, artist Mellon Thomas Benedict died of terminal cancer. While he was traveling toward the light, Benedict decided he had questions and wanted to see things first. In an amazing near-death experience, he recalled flying through the solar system, leaving this galaxy and traveling to other worlds that had other life. His journey reportedly took him to far-off worlds and even past the Big Bang into the void of nothingness. Benedict awoke an hour and a half later after he had died. Later tests showed that his cancer had gone into what the doctors called spontaneous remission. Don Piper. In 1989, Don Piper was in the car that hit a transport truck head-on. Declared dead by paramedics, Piper was without a pulse for 90 minutes. While he was dead, he experienced music and smells which were very pleasing. He also met with his grandfather and several other long-deceased acquaintances in front of a very large gate. The whole experience was deemed rather pleasant. The meeting was cut short when Piper began to regain consciousness. His return to life surprised many, including the people who had stopped to pray near his body at the scene of the horrific accident. Dr. Mary Neal. In 1999, Dr. Mary Neal was kayaking when her craft turned over. Pinned underwater, Neal was without air for up to 25 minutes before help arrived. In her unconscious state, she endured a near-death experience which told of the future. In this instance, however, it was a future she probably didn't want to know. While she was dead, Neal was informed that her 9-year-old son would die. No information concerning the specifics of his death were given. However, the prophecy came true 10 years later when Neal's now 19-year-old son was killed in a car accident. Paul Ike. When he was just 3 years old, Paul Ike fell through the ice of a pond. Pulled from the pond by rescuers, Paul was considered clinically dead because he had no pulse for 3 hours. After considerable work by doctors, Paul's heart started again and the little boy lived to tell an interesting story. Paul claimed he had been floating around in the sky before arriving at a gate. He approached the gate and tried to enter but was turned away by a figure who said to be his late grandmother. As she turned him away from the entrance, her parting message was that Paul's parents were waiting for him. Anita Moryani. In 2006, Anita Moryani's fight with terminal cancer seemed to be at an end when she slipped into a coma. As her organs shut down and her body swelled, Anita later reported that she was listening to conversations between doctors and her husband far away from her hospital room. She also saw a vision of her brother traveling on a plane to see her. Both events were later confirmed, but Anita could not have known about them at the time. Allegedly given the choice to live or die, Anita came back to full consciousness and underwent a miraculous recovery whereby her cancer regressed to the point that doctors could find no trace of it. Colton Burpo. When 3-year-old Colton was laying on the hospital surgery table with a burst appendix, doctors feared for the worst. Amazingly, 2 hours later, Colton was out of surgery with some amazing stories to tell. He told his parents that he had met a little girl who was his sister. In fact, Colton's mother had suffered a miscarriage while carrying what would have been a daughter, but they had never told their son about this. He also told them of a conversation he had with a man named Pop. Colton was later able to identify the man in family photos as his paternal grandfather who had died years earlier.
Joining me now is an expert, Pastor Don Piper, who has written about his own experience. He was in a terrible car accident, and he says he died and went to heaven and came back. He is the author of People I Met at the Gates of Heaven. Pastor Piper, good to see you tonight. I'm pretty sure that you believe these folks when they say that that's an angel, right?
I do. I think we're around them all the time.
Even physics and the other sciences found evidence for an afterlife.
He says he has glimpsed the divine, an orb of light brighter than a million suns, all-powerful, all-loving, a being beyond words. Dr. Eben Alexander recounts his remarkable near-death experience in the New York Times bestseller, Proof of Heaven, a neurosurgeon's journey into the afterlife. In 2008, Alexander suffered a meningitis-induced coma and nearly died. The out-of-body experience he had in that state is proof that consciousness is independent of the body. Alexander continues to probe consciousness and looks to transcend the limitations of the brain in his latest book, The Map of Heaven: How Science, Religion, and Ordinary People Are Proving the Afterlife.
Consciousness, from my point of view, is primordial. Consciousness pre-exists the entire universe, and in fact, all of the material universe is built on the substrate of consciousness as fundamental, and that's why the current revolution in kind of brain science and the mind-body discussion is so interesting and of so much power to all of us, because it's showing us what quantum mechanics has tried to show us for 100 years, which is consciousness is fundamental in everything that evolves in this universe. And in fact, what I would say is that conscious awareness is greatly enhanced when it's freed up from the shackles of the physical brain, completely outside of space and time. It's a much richer, more profound existence. Sure. And yet the interesting thing is that when we come into these bodies, because I believe that it all has to do with reincarnation. We don't just, you know, have one incarnation and then it's heaven or hell forever, and that's the end of it. But in fact, we come back again and again in our process of ascendance. But the interesting thing is how we forget. You know, there is that forgetting. Now, children, I think, are very much walking in two worlds. You know, very young children, they're living in that spiritual realm and in this earthly realm.
They remember a little better
than
remember.
we do.
At this point, we cannot definitively prove an afterlife. But there is enough evidence to consider it probable.